but you have a gas tank, and then there's a line that runs out of that, and it has fuel in it, and it's flammable. I'm like, I would have had a fire going that they would have seen in D.C. So we're bebopping right along. I'm like, man, these guys are full. No problem. And then we hit the, pickup sticks in the bubblegum forest. I'm talking tree over tree over tree.
And it's a collection of indie filmmakers. Some of them are much better looking than other ones. Come on, get a piece of this.
When we sneak in, because we're thinking they're going to still be bedded in this one area, nothing, right? Houdini, Kaiser Sourcing, they're gone. I'm like, well, fudge. Generally, panic is what kills you in a survival situation. And I always use the analogy of my wife wants a gun that'll shoot down trees, that doesn't make noise and doesn't kick. And they just don't have that.
Come on, Charlie. Tell us how you're doing it. Come on, man. How are you calling in those bulls? I can't do it, dude.
Yeti, bloody Yeti.
Cut sleeve shirt, is that like a wife beater?
No, not quite.
Is it just you cut the sleeves off?
It's more redneck instead of white trash. So the
someday I hope to be a redneck.
The sleeves are just...
Hello, alright. You're listening to the Gritty Bowman, home of gritty bow hunting films, interviews, tall tales, and a wee bit of manly boasting.
I'm South Cox, and you're listening to The Gritty Bowman.
Hey, this is Corey Jacobson, and you're listening to The Gritty Bowman.
We bone and raised outdoors, and you've been listening to The Gritty Bowman.
There you go.
I'm Casey.
And I'm Jordan.
And you're watching
The Gritty Bowman.
On this episode of Gritty Bowman, I visit with my friends Chris Pasqua of Is It September Yet and Colin Snyder of Blacktail Outdoors to talk about blacktail deer hunting. It's November 10th today in the Willamette Valley, and the blacktail rut is on. Bucks are breeding does, and blacktail hunting right now can be magical. I've said this many times. Seeing a giant Willamette Valley blacktail buck with your naked eyes during daylight hours is like catching a glimpse of a unicorn. This year on October 30th, Chris Pasqua did just that. He arrowed a unicorn, a giant blacktail buck he affectionately dubbed Daddy. In 2011, Daddy was a beautiful 4x4 buck, a buck that most blacktail hunters dream about. By 2015, at an estimated age of 8 years old, Daddy grew into a true giant with a rough score of 153 inches gross and 151 inches net. In this podcast, Colin and Chris and I talk about our shared passion for blacktail deer hunting. We talk about Colin's monster blacktail buck scoring nearly 140 inches. We learn about Blacktail Outdoors and a little about Is It September Yet. I thoroughly enjoyed hanging out with these two guys and talking about these elusive animals. I enjoyed it so much that our discussion went on for nearly 3 hours. Unfortunately, I lost audio at about 45 minutes into the podcast. I seriously wanted to cry. The best parts of the podcast came after the first hour. So Chris and Colin have graciously agreed to return to my house to redo the second half of this podcast. Look for that episode next week. For those of you who want to see the video version of this podcast, which includes video of these bucks recorded in studio, as well as game camera pictures dating back to 2011, you can watch this podcast on our YouTube channel, or you can subscribe to our Gritty Bowman TV podcast in iTunes, where we post all the video versions of this podcast and all of our other video content we produce.
If you like the show, please go to our website at grittybowman.com and subscribe to this podcast and tell your mates and pals about us. Do us a favour and please take a moment to leave us a rating or a review on iTunes or on our YouTube channel. Send your questions and podcast ideas to grittybowman@gmail.com. If you're listening to this on iTunes, you can see the video version of this podcast on our website at www.grittybowman.com.
Do we have a code word for restroom break?
All right, folks, welcome to the Gritty Bowman podcast. I am here with Chris Pasqua and Colin Snyder.
Yep.
And we are here to talk about blacktails. And Chris just killed a monster, blacktail.
Yeah.
When?
Friday, yeah.
Friday?
Friday afternoon.
And today is the 5th?
5th, yep.
November 5th. So Friday would have been...
30th.
The 30th, day before Halloween?
Yep.
Okay. So, I wanted to have Chris down here in the Gritty studio to talk about his buck and how he got it, and get a feel for talk about blacktails and how to hunt them and how what we love about them. So, Colin is here for good looks and to add some sexy to the room. Actually, tell folks about yourself.
My name is Colin Snyder. I'm from Canby, Oregon. I got a wife, 2 kids, and one on the way. I am completely and totally obsessed with blacktail deer and hunting them. So everything I do pretty much revolves around that almost year-round. My dad is also enthusiast. I believe still holds that record for most book entries in Oregon right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, so passed the same passion on to me and my brother, and we've stuck with it ever since, and so now it's pretty much consumed me. So I started Blacktail Outdoors in 2012, and we've been just focusing on trying to put a spotlight on blacktails. They
Share the passion.
share the love they deserve.
So tell us about Blacktail Outdoors.
Yeah, so my brother and I back in it was 2011. I was trying to film his hunt. We were down in Southern Oregon, and I was on my way to his tree stand. I was helping someone else find a buck, and I was on my way there, and he texts me. He's like, "Just shot a giant forky." And I'm like, "Thanks, man. You could have waited, But I ended up catching up with him, and all we filmed really was the recovery, and it turned out really cool. And I said, "Man, we got to do this." And so we sat down one day and we were trying to think about, all these cool different names that we could come up with, for what became Blacktail. And at the end of it, we're like, what drives us? What do we focus on the most? And, that's what inspired us, and that's what inspired Blacktail Outdoors, was just getting out there and getting after the Northwest ghost,
And so the Blacktail Outdoors is a online.
Yeah, it's a small film production company. I'm not. I don't do any DVDs or anything like that. I'm not trying to make money at this.
Yep.
I'm just trying to bring, bow hunting all together as a sport, to the public eye in a better way than someone else has portrayed it. I think that there's more to show than what we have shown, and also giving credit to Blacktails, the credit I think they deserve. So
yeah, that's kind of why I'm excited that you guys are here tonight, because frankly, I don't think Blacktail get the love they should be getting.
They don't.
And archery, bow hunting, and just hunting films in general, they're a lot of the stuff you see on TV, some of it's gotten better.
Yeah.
I will say the last few years, it's really, there's some really nice film coming out, and things that for me really highlight what's great about hunting. Share the message in a way that I want the public to see it. So that's kind of what drove me too when I started getting into cameras and filming and stuff, was that I wanted to be able to tell a better story about what hunting is and promote archery and the lifestyle that I believe in, getting your own meat in the wild and all that kind of stuff. So I know what you mean. So when you started Blacktail Outdoors, so have you got, it's all on YouTube? You got a Facebook page?
Yeah, we got a Facebook page. We got a regular website, blacktailoutdoors.com. The Facebook page. And then we just switched over to YouTube instead of using the Vimeo. It just felt like I could get more access to people that way. But we kind of play back and forth between the two, and I'll probably, produce the same footage onto each one just to have different platforms out there available. But for the most part, it's all accessible right there for anyone that wants to watch it. I'm not going to charge anyone money or anything like that. I'm not, like I said, no one really makes money in this business, and so I'm not trying to,
When you said you're looking for, when your buddy shot a big forked horn.
Yeah.
In whitetail circles, there's no such thing.
Yeah.
And but sometimes we get super jacked by a big forked horn buck.
Yeah.
Because blacktail
Can be a 5-year-old forked horn.
Yeah, we were
Exactly.
just talking about this today. Actually, I was checking a trail camera picture today, and I'm like, what is this buck? I sent it to Chris, and it was a 3-point. And I said, is this deer old or what? He looks old. He looks like a pig. And we both kind of looked at him. He's got to be, that 4.5 range, something like that. I mean, blacktails, we don't have 13 pointers and things like that. That doesn't, it's completely different. For me, I look for maturity always. I'm looking for frame, age. That's what I look for. Tines don't really do that much for me all the time.
What is it about blacktail that you like? I mean, why do you like blacktail?
There is a mystique that goes with them. I mean, when you hunt the Northwest, there's fog, there's ferns, you get the same leaves, it's wet,
It's eerie.
Yeah, exactly. There's almost like a dark gloominess that's there, and then all of a sudden, and the other thing too is they're sneaky. There's nothing that all of a sudden they're there. Oh my gosh, right there in front of you.
I think whitetail can be very much compared to blacktail in that they're sneaky, crafty, smart.
Yeah.
What do you think is different than whitetail about blacktail besides
that we don't get to hunt whitetails?
Besides the terrain?
There's there's the difference is too, there's in my opinion, I see a difference in population. Where we're hunting blacktails here, you're not going to see the same deer numbers. You're going to see
they're few and far between.
And somewhere east, and finding a buck's hard to do. Finding a mature blacktail is hard to do. Finding a trophy book blacktail, that's just a whole different level right there.
I've been caught saying this a lot. It's like looking for a unicorn.
It is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's that hard to find them.
Yeah.
So, Chris,
I finally had to use that saying the other day.
It is.
What is it for you that makes blacktail hunting special? Like, why is it that
similar to
species?
Colin? They're a ghost. They're elusive. The weather. I love the rut. I love how they're swolled up, the way they look. They're just kind of mystical.
Yeah.
It's not every day that you can even go kill, or even every year you can go kill a good blacktail. I mean,
Yeah.
Right.
it's a challenge.
There, that's like what he said right there. When you meet a guy every year that kills a Pope and Young or a old buck every year, you're like, that guy pops in your head. He sticks with you. You know his name, and there's a select few that are able to do that. And that's, you see it's a different story. There's most of the time there's no outfitters. You're not working between food plots or things like that. In my opinion, it's a whole different style of hunting.
I love how tough it is.
Yeah.
I mean, I say that all the time. Like, I don't want to go out and kill a deer on the first day or two. I want to hunt. I want to be in the woods and
feel the grind.
Yeah.
That's what it is. Blacktail hunting's a grind.
I think for me, the reason that I really like chasing blacktails is one, I find them just gorgeous.
Yeah.
Like they're it's like when you're duck hunting and you get a wood duck. It's just a pretty duck.
Yeah.
It's just like amazing, right?
Yeah, no, I definitely feel they are the prettiest deer.
It's the throat patch, the
blackhead,
the color of their hide and everything. It just, to me, is pretty sweet. Then the chocolate horns rubbing on trees out here in the Northwest, they have a look to them to me that the ears, the proportion of the ears, all that kind of the side, they just look really pretty to me.
Yeah.
And I like a good whitetail,
Oh, yeah.
and I like mule deer, but there's something just pretty about a big blacktail buck. And the other part is just like you guys, I grew up here in the Northwest, and when I go off in the woods, and it's foggy and it's it's cool, and you're in this timber and you're moving around, it's just it's so quiet because the ground's sopping wet, and it's just like they feel like ghosts. And as much as I like blacktail, I think the final reason is that I'm obsessed because I can't find them.
Yeah.
I can't freaking find one.
Yeah.
You know, it's like I can't find a big mature buck, even though I work at it every year. And I get a picture of one, and I know they're there, and I've had them every year. I find a couple of big ones, but they come out one time in the daylight.
A year
in, and then even at night, like I don't get a ton of pictures of those big bucks. They come on these trails, like I just never know if that's the day, and so I don't have very many blacktail bucks. I've shot like 4 or 5 bigger bucks, and they're 3-year-old and older, and every single one of them was hard won and hard work, and so. And then it's always close encounters. Like I'm not really rifle hunting blacktails much, and so I'm bow hunting. And you can still hunt, or you can be in a tree stand or something. But it's just a cool experience. It's so close. It reminds me of hunting bears on Prince of Wales Island. It's close encounters. Yeah. It's not distant stuff, because you're not gonna where I'm hunting. You can't glass 50 yards.
Exactly.
So
there.
Where
oh
I'm,
my goodness.
Yeah. In my spots, like the further shot's going to be 25 yards.
Right.
So it's intense, close.
Same. Yeah.
So Colin, you shot a giant blacktail in 2013.
He's a dandy. Yeah.
So why don't you grab that buck and show that to the folks that are watching. People who are you can leave those on. Walk over there with them. People who are watching can see this, but people who are listening, you're just going to have to bear with us. Dude, that thing is a monster.
Yeah. Here we go.
Okay. Katie, maybe you can... Katie's my cameraman, my sister, my camera woman. Yeah, see if you can get some close-ups on that and just really see it. I can't believe how heavy he is. Just so...
the
mass is just... cool. He's tall.
That's another thing, how unique and just the characteristics of it.
Like blacktail antler formation, it doesn't have it's totally random. I don't have a buck that looks like another buck.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, you'll get a 7-year-old forked horn or a 7-year-old 3x3.
Exactly. Yeah. There's just
I'll get some with eye guard, some without, completely just none. The antler formations are just random.
Yeah.
So this buck here has a ton of mass.
Yeah.
What does he score?
He netted 131, and 131 and 5/8, I think, and he grossed 140 on the button.
Wow.
So.
Yeah, Katie, did you get a shot of that from different angles?
It's a western.
You're pretty far away. Come on up here and get a close up.
A Western Oregon blacktail.
So, Colin, exactly where did you shoot him?
In the heart.
In the heart. That's right. You caught me off guard with that one. What? That wasn't part of what we were talking about.
Yeah. So, Willamette Valley, right?
Yeah, Willamette Valley buck. It was actually a new piece that I was hunting. I didn't know anything about it, and I went in there and set up a camera, and I came back, like 2 or 3 days later. I do that first initial check just to make sure everything's working right
with the camera and stuff.
Yeah, and I was checking this at home, and I got one photo of him, the first photo, and he was head on, and it was kind of blurry, and I said, no, it's just blurred, something's not right.
It ain't right.
It's not 140.
Yeah, and then I got another picture of him, and I about screamed like a little girl, actually. And my wife still says, "You weren't even that excited when you found out we were having a kid." She said, "I've never seen you wound up like that." And I said,
"Hey, you have 3 kids, and you only have one of these. That's why."
Because in my entire life, my dad's killed a bunch of really nice blacktails, and I'd never seen anything like it,
Yeah.
And I wasn't expecting him, to find that right away, kind of a thing. Most of the time, you hone in on a place for years, and finally something comes up, and this was just totally unexpected. So, yeah, it definitely caught me off guard for sure. So,
well, I wanted to get into you can put him down.
Cool.
I wanted to get into some more discussion about blacktail behavior, how to hunt them, things like that. But before we go there, I want to hear the story about Daddy from Mr. Chris Pasqua. Chris, tell us a little bit about yourself and how most people would know you, and then tell us about this monster buck.
All right. Chris Pasqua, similar to you guys, born and raised in the Pacific Northwest. Been bow hunting for a long time, 20 years, and just recently started a brand that I'm trying to build. Is it September yet? You can find it. isitseptemberyet.net, and it's a gear line, a brand geared towards the archery elk hunter. Yep. Every year I find myself just waiting around for elk season and saying, "Man, is it September yet?"
Yeah.
August, just waiting. So.
Sorry.
We're doing apparel and some carrying some Phelps game calls and stuff like that, and it's just a slow process, but building a brand.
That's pretty sweet. Yeah, the Facebook group, Is It September Yet?
Yep, Facebook. It's a group. Is it September Yet? That's just kind of a online forum for elk hunters, gear, tactics. Share your story or whatnot, and then you can find apparel and other things online. Like I said, isitseptemberyet.net. And Instagram, Is It September Yet?
It's a cool community, man.
Yeah.
The guys that are in it, sharing information and pictures and stuff. It's a great...
Yeah, no, I've met a lot of cool people. I mean,
I mostly, participate in Facebook and follow the Facebook group. And one of the things that I like about it is it just seems like everybody there is just really helpful, friendly.
Yeah, well, we definitely try to, keep it
Do you
friendly.
cut people out?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
I think you have to.
Oh, yeah.
Today, like, if you want a good group, you got to can those people that are just bad apples.
You have to do it. And
you keep up better than anyone else does as far as running a page.
If I see it, then I'll do,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to be the police or I'm not going to babysit, but if I see it, I'll, ixnay it.
It's cool because I've seen you handle it, and you handle it so well. You just tell guys, well,
my mom's on there.
Let's clean it up and stuff, and right away, guys they do for the most part.
Yeah, my mom's on there. There's lady hunters, females, kids, young adults. So it needs to be a good, clean environment.
That's neat.
So
how many blacktail bucks have you shot? Just a rough number,
With archery equipment, probably 15. And not until the last 5 years did I ever look at age or try to wait until they were mature.
So have you shot any monsters?
One.
Okay.
Yep. I shot a monster this year that my cousin actually had found in 2011. Mm-hmm. My cousin put up a camera, found this buck in October.
And we've got some pictures that we're going to put in the podcast.
Put up some pictures. We've got some sheds. But yeah, my cousin found this buck in October 2011 and hunted him in the late season for 21 days straight.
Yep.
Afternoon hunts. That was the way he could set up on him, wait for him to come down the hill or whatnot. And he actually saw the deer one evening. He came in, and my cousin Paul went to draw on him at last light, and the buck caught movement and bolted. So that was the last he saw of him. Paul didn't hunt that spot. He actually moved, and nobody was hunting this area in 2012 or 2013. So I actually had a few cameras spread out around the mountain, and I did get some pictures of him in 2012 and 2013 during the rutting does at night, And so I knew he was around, but it never really interested me to hunt him. It was kind of my cousin's deer at first,
Yeah.
And it wasn't in an area that I could hunt, and it was just cool knowing he was there. I was completely fine with that. He was just a huge, giant buck.
It is neat to just get pictures and just know that
Yeah.
there's a monster out there running around.
I got pictures. I've seen them a few times in the headlights, in the fields, you
Yep.
know, rutting does. I was totally fine just knowing that. And so, spring of early 2014, I was wondering if he was still around. And I thought, you know what? If I can draw the tag, I'll try to hunt him this year. So I ended up drawing the tag. I put out some cameras, and the very first buck on the camera in June was him. And so that was early summer. I watched him all summer, had hundreds of pictures of him until he rubbed, and once he rubbed, he went completely nocturnal.
Which is pretty standard.
Oh, yeah.
Common practice.
Yep.
That's why they become ghosts.
Yep.
That's why we call them ghosts.
Velvet in the rut, the only time you're going to see him. So, let's see what. Mid-October rolled around, and it was time to start hunting. So, from October until late December, I hunted him 36 times. I went to either the tree stand or the blind.
Which, you know, it's funny because you like I watch Bow Hunter Die. I watch Heartland Bow Hunter. You know, I watch these different whitetail shows where they're out hunting whitetails on farms, and you know, and I listen to Wired to Hunt a lot. I like Mark Kenyon, and when I hear these guys talk about whitetail, generally most of them will not be going into the same spot 36 times.
Yeah.
Well, generally, they're going to kill him long before that.
Well, maybe, but a lot of it has to do with the fact that they're like, I don't want to leave my scent there.
Yeah.
If I come in and I sit for 3 days in a row or 4 days in a row,
Yep.
my scent's going to settle in that area, and then pretty soon those big bucks are going to be out there. So they'll go hunt it, and then they'll go hunt a different property rather than hit it 2 days in a row. And they're really worried about sitting the same spot day after day after day after day because
Yep.
at some point they're like, you know, those whitetails are not going to come in.
I'm a firm believer of the day I don't go is the day he's going to come. And also that my scent is in there and he associates it with no danger. So
you're going in there to the same area a lot.
Yep.
You're checking your camera.
Every other day, every few days.
And basically you're getting because you're in there all that time. When you go in, come out, go in, come out.
Yep.
They can tell you've been in there. You're a normal presence.
Yeah, well, I'll go in at 4 o'clock and check a camera on the way home, and then I see deer in there at 7.
And they don't
and that
avoid
happens every day.
They don't avoid
No.
the area because you've been there.
Nope.
Now,
that's what having multiple cameras in one area will tell me, is that they don't mind.
Yeah, I have figured out the same thing too. Colin?
I am completely on the same page there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, so before we get more into your story, I got more questions. So, how much descenting do you do?
Some. When I get in the blind, I will spray down.
Mm-hmm.
And then once I spray down, I spray down with scent killer once I'm in the blind. Because hiking in, I got a pack, camera gear, I'm sweating,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm going to be in there for a few hours. So I do spray down scent killer, but once that's settled, I spray the blind with hot dough or something to just kind of mask it.
Mm-hmm.
But usually I try to set it with the winds in my face,
Yep.
so it doesn't matter.
Now, how often are you in a tree stand or a ground blind?
Every hunt.
Which one? Versus, I mean, do you spend most of your time in a tree stand?
It just depends on the action. Like last year, I hunted the first 14 days of that hunt, that deer, in the tree stand, and in 14 days, I didn't see a buck.
Did you see does?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
And so that's why I kept sitting, because I figured any day
They'll come into heat and they'll bring
a
him
buck
in.
is going to lock on. He's going to lock on.
You didn't see any bucks though the whole time?
Nope.
So
They were staging in the timber, and I was in an opening, and they just wouldn't come out until after dark.
So what'd you do?
So late in the season, it was a little late, but I did move up into the draw, into the timber, and I saw deer like 20 sits in a row, little bucks. I passed a real good buck, but never saw the big guy.
Okay.
Last year.
How much difference do you get winded more in a ground blind or in a tree stand?
If you set up properly, you won't get winded, but obviously in a tree is better. But I think in 2 years I've been winded once in my ground blind. Yep.
I haven't hunted in ground blind much. Every time I do, I hate it.
Yeah.
I like to be high where I can see everything. And I just psychologically, mentally, I just feel like when I'm 30 or 40 feet up in a tree, they just can't smell me.
Oh, yeah. No, in a ground blind, you can't breathe heavy. You have to limit your...
Well, you got to pass gas.
You got to limit wiping your face, because what I found is the bucks will sit out there 60 to 70 yards, and they'll scan the area. And if you're in the blind moving around or fidgeting, they're going to see you and they're not coming.
You can almost dance a jig up 40 feet and they don't see you.
I like
the tree stand. I like that. I get away with a lot of movement, I think, up there. Running the camera, moving around. I'm surprised how much movement I get away with. They're not blacktails, as far as my experience has been, they are not used to predators in trees.
No, they're not looking for anything in trees.
No.
They don't look up. They have no reason to, unless there's an apple sitting in front of them. They're not going to look up at anything.
Unlike what I hear with whitetails that are like, oh, you suckers are up there. They take 2 steps and they're scanning the treetops. They grow up, I think, just getting hunted from above. So
educated.
They're smart. They figured that out. Out here, dude, I've found you can, if you're up high enough too, you really don't get seen, and I never really get smelled that much. I kind of like you. I descent. I just don't want to come in there all stinky. So I do shower, and I do put on my rubber boots, and I try to manage my scent going in with clean clothes. But they're used to me coming in every 3 to 5 days.
Yep.
They're used to my smell. I go in, I go out. I go in, I go out. Now, what I did find, and I have cameras all around, I have some trails that I go in on and trails I come out on. If I go off trail, the deer stop coming for a couple days.
Yeah.
It's like they're okay with me going in on my trail. That's my trail. If I go and do some kind of hoop-de-loop around the area and check some stuff and go through the ferns and stuff, it's like, whoa, the guy didn't hit.
I used one trail.
Yeah.
From June until now, every third day, one trail in, one trail out.
Never waver. And I every year in the summer, I'll cut that completely so that I know. I mean, I wear rubber boots too, but I know that there's no leaves, there's no nothing brushing against me. It is complete dirt road to my stand. I don't care if they know I'm in there or not, but I know I'm not. I'm doing the same thing every time.
Yep.
And
I do the same thing. I clear the ground path pretty well. I was kind of lazy this year, but normally I have a nice
your year's just starting
dirt trail. I still have time, but I hate to mess. I do not. I mean, this close to the rut, and I don't like to go in there and start cutting stuff. So I usually cut it in August, and if I don't cut it before August, then I just live with it being there.
I typically do it the week I get home from elk hunting.
Yeah.
Right after elk
season. Sometimes I'll do it that late too, but that's about it. After that, it's like, I'll hang my sets, my tree stands the week I get home from elk hunting. Or if I can, I'll do them in August.
I'm a little different.
Yeah?
Yeah, well, lots of times.
He still has stands to hang.
I still have stands to hang right now. But, but the thing is, though, I kind of bounce around from place to place, seeing, like I was saying before, I will not shoot a buck unless I know that it's a mature blacktail, regardless of size or whatever. And so that's kind of my new focus. Like you said, about 5 years ago is when I kind of started doing that a little more. And I kind of found that I was running out of equipment, and you know what I mean? And lots of other times too, when the rut kicks on, all of a sudden there's this new cycle that I wasn't prepared for or wasn't ready for,
Yeah.
That blacktail was killed out of a ground blind because I realized I had no actual usable trees that I could get into, and I knew he was there.
Was he in the open?
Yeah, came out into the open by himself.
You need to get you need to be in a ground blind.
Dude, every time I set up in the open, like you, I have the same problem. They stage in the woods and then they don't come out in the open until after dark.
I set back a bit, and that actually the morning before I killed him, I came out and when I got in my blind, I wanted to see what time it was. And I use a green light or a red light when I go into my tree stand. And I firmly believe that they cannot, detect that. And I walked all the way to my blind, got in there, set up, and I pulled my phone out to see what time it was. And I heard something bust off. And I put it back down, and I used my binos, and I started glassing through, and I saw his face between two ferns, and he was looking right at me, but he didn't know what I was or what had happened. He just saw a light. I had no idea, but I checked my camera, and he was sitting there when I walked into my blind, like 35 yards away from me
with the green light.
Yeah, with that green light.
Yeah,
and but yeah, that's that blind setup right there. That was a kind of a new deal for me too, but it was the most ideal setup for the situation at the time.
I know my friend Anthony, a hunting partner Anthony, he's gotten to where he does like blinds quite a bit, and he's gotten where deer pass 10 yards in front of that thing or closer. I have yet to experience being on the ground and having animals be that close. I've just had better luck in a tree stand.
It hooks you. That's another thing.
I plan on setting one up with my daughter, so she's because it gets wet, you get rained on and cold, and I wanted her to have a nice, comfortable place. So, I want to try one, but I haven't. So when you like them moving at night is a problem, right?
Oh yeah.
So, how do you get that deer?
I'm a firm believer. My main thing I focus on year round is a pinch point. I try to find patches. Those big bucks especially. They stick to the timber almost 99% of the time until there's that one doe that can pull them out. But most of the time I find where naturally they have to bottleneck, whether it's between bodies of water or whatever. I'm going to go to, no matter what, when they walk through here, I'm at least at a 40-yard shot in here. I'm set up in the middle of this, and lots of times those deer blacktails move a lot more during the day than I think people realize, and and I know that just from like different properties and stuff. I'll talk to so and so, and he's like, "Oh, he was cruising through the bottom of the canyon yesterday," and I'm like, "It's 2:00 in the afternoon. Why would you be doing that?" But nonetheless, I know that's where he's gonna focus in on. That pinch point. That's probably my favorite.
They're somewhere in the light.
Yeah,
they are. They are. I think they're buried 15 feet into some blackberry bush. That's where I think they're in the light.
In a cave.
I'm telling you, I don't think they move that much during daytime until the rut.
Yeah.
I really firmly, at least in the Willamette Valley, where I spend most of my time hunting, I feel like they're extremely nocturnal to the point where
I do agree.
Where I just don't see them, and then even on camera, I've tried to piggyback away from my set, so I know that he's on this trail. So I set a couple cameras up back to see on some trails coming in to see, okay, where is he at now? And then back from there and back from there. And he's a freaking Houdini. I don't know where he comes from. I don't know if he comes from the same spot twice, Yeah. I cannot figure out where he's moving during the daytime to get to where he's at night.
I did that last year. Every 2 or 3 days, I would move cameras to trails and trails because he was coming here every evening, but I just could never figure out which way he was coming. So every 3 days, I would move like 3 cameras. And for 2 months, I could not get him on camera.
I think for me too is I tried to. I'm like, I'm going to cut him off. I'm going to get him in the daytime You know, like this is not a 1 hour journey that he's on.
Right.
It's a 5-minute walk.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's not going to make a difference between me being there and over there.
True,
you
true.
know? That's what
I
that
think
was the
too.
reality for me. I was like, oh, well.
I think that they don't wander that far from, at least, you know, right here, especially where I'm hunting in some urban or some suburban areas.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
And so, you know, I don't think they have to travel
I'm the
that
same
far.
way. I think that this buck was bedding last year within 300 yards
Yeah.
of my set for 3 months.
Yep.
And
so my strategy is does. I just find the does, and I try to stay where there's lots of does and create doe activity. And I put apples out all through September and October, and the does are traveling through all the time, eating apples. And I have a very small piece of acreage, you know, for like 5 acres, and it's wooded. And there's no reason for them to really come on my property. We do have some apple trees on the neighbor's property, and they hammer those apple trees.
Oh, yeah.
Hammer them. And so I'm about, you know, probably a few hundred yards from those, and I put apples where I'm out, and they hit there too. And so the does come in and the fawns come in, and I just try to sit somewhere in there between bedding areas and the feed area and get a chance.
Yeah.
yeah.
So I know at some point, so what I found out at my place is, and hunting some others too, that I don't think the bucks travel super far. And so they're going to breed these does,
They're
whatever.
they're home bodies.
They're home bodies. They're going to breed those local does that are right there.
Oh,
now,
yeah.
it's a different story if you're up in, you know,
Cascades or something like that.
Upper Clackamas. You know, if you're up in some of these places, you know, their migration and all that kind of stuff different. A little. I've hunted there too. It's totally different than what I'm describing here. So, I think that they don't go very far. I think that they also those big bucks, they don't show up until the doe is truly in heat.
I was just saying to him today, I called him, and he called me, you know, last week, panicked, like, what are we going to do? I'm not seeing, you know, he disappeared, that kind of thing. And I'm calling him today. I'm like, I got 3.5-year-old deer all day long. Where are my big bucks? And, you know, you kind of have to calm each other.
I had to counsel him.
I had to counsel him last week. He had to counsel me. He's like, relax. You know they're going to be there.
They're
Your weight, you know.
This is the first year in like 3 years where I haven't seen the buck I'm after. I call him Lefty. I haven't seen him by now. They normally have him on film by now.
Before we got here today, I was telling Colin, I think we're a week behind. I think we're, 7 to 10 days behind. It varies every year from what I've found.
Yeah.
Last year I had the most daytime movement was the 1st through the 7th, the 8th. Was the most daylight.
Me too.
Footage last year.
Me too.
The year before, it was like the 13th through the 17th, the 12th through the 18th, somewhere in there. So, yeah, I think this year we're a week off.
All right, friends. Thanks for listening and supporting the podcast. Don't forget about our deal with Mountain Ops. Type in the word gritty at checkout and get 20% off until the end of the year. For those of you who have not seen the Full Draw Film Tour this year and want to go, check out their website for their tour schedule. And if you haven't done so, go and subscribe to our YouTube channel or to the Gritty Bowman TV podcast on iTunes or Podbean so you can see all the latest video content we have produced. And be sure to have a look at the new Elk 101 website where you can find our podcast and other great elk hunting content. Thank you for taking the time to leave us your feedback. We really appreciate your sincere support of our show. Finally, let me leave you with this quote by President Theodore Roosevelt, who in 1905 said, "In a civilized and cultivated country, wild animals only continue to exist at all when preserved by sportsmen. The excellent people who protest against all hunting and consider sportsmen as enemies of wildlife are ignorant of the fact that in reality, the genuine sportsman is by all odds the most important factor in keeping the larger and more valuable wild creatures from total extermination." Friends, always take the time to educate those around you about your role as a hunter in preserving the wild creatures of this world. If you don't, who will? As always, Good luck on your hunts, and stay gritty.
This is Ty Stubblefield, and you're listening to the Gritty Bowman.
Gritty Bowman.